SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්. SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
Tonight, the roadmap. Sri Lankan authorities expect to get IMF board approval for the $2.9 billion package by year end. Encourages formation of ad hoc bilateral creditor coordination platform. Life saving. The United Kingdom announced that they would provide Sri Lanka with a €3 million life saving support package. Official Secrets Act. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka says President's declaration of certain areas in Colombo as high security zone seems as an attempt to impede on right of freedom of expression. Resumed. Controversial Russian state-owned Aeroflot aircraft to resume flights to Sri Lanka from the 9th of October. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Saturday, the 24th of September 2022.
විම් දියර මිලිලීටර් 100 ස්මාර්ට් පැක් එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. I'm Andrew Bernard. Now, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri will address the United Nations General Assembly in the 13th plenary meeting of the General Debate during the early hours of tomorrow. The General Debate of the Assembly that started on the 20th of September is this time themed as a watershed moment, transformative solutions to interlocking challenges.
The 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly commenced in New York on the 13th of September. The general debate on the Assembly started on 20th of September, in which heads of state and government will be exploring solutions to the intertwined global challenges under the theme A Watershed Moment, Transformative Solutions to Interlocking Challenges. The general debate is scheduled to conclude on the 26th of September. The Sri Lankan delegation, who is currently in New York to address the UNGA, consists of Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Council Ali Sabri, Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the UN Mohan Piris, senior official of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and officials of the Permanent Mission of Sri Lanka in New York. The Sri Lankan Foreign Minister will address the 13th plenary meeting of the general debate that will commence shortly after midnight tonight.
During his visit to New York to address the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri met a number of leaders of delegations of the UN member states, including President of the US, Joe Biden. During a meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, both Sri Lanka and China reaffirmed their commitment to the long-standing bilateral friendship and pledged to continue cooperation at bilateral and multilateral fora. Further areas of bilateral cooperation, including investment in Sri Lanka and improving air connectivity, was discussed with the UAE's State Minister of Foreign and International Cooperation. On the sidelines of the 77th United Nations General Assembly in New York, Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Council Ali Sabri met with the US President Joe Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden at a dinner reception hosted by the US President. The Sri Lankan Foreign Minister also met with UN Under-Secretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, Rosemary Ann DiCarlo, and briefed her on the steps being taken by the Sri Lankan government to overcome current challenges. Discussions were also made on UN political and peacebuilding affairs projects in Sri Lanka. In another meeting, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri met with Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi. During discussions, both sides affirmed their commitment to the long-standing friendship and pledged to continue the excellent cooperation in bilateral and multilateral fora. Further, UAE's State Minister of Foreign and International Cooperation Ahmad Al-Sayed also called on Foreign Minister Sabri. Both parties have discussed areas of bilateral cooperation, including UAE investment in Sri Lanka and improving air connectivity. Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary of Nepal Bharat Raj Paudyal met with the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister to discuss the future trajectory of Nepal-Sri Lanka relations rooted in historic ties of friendship and cooperation. Now, the UK's Minister of State for the Middle East, South Asia and UN, Lord Tariq Ahmad of Wimbledon, announced a €3 million life-saving support package to Sri Lankans affected from the ongoing economic crisis. During a meeting with Foreign Minister Ali Sabri, Lord Ahmad said that this support is to the most vulnerable in the country and the UK will continue to work with the international partners to help Sri Lanka. The UK Minister of State for the Middle East, South Asia and UN, Lord Tariq Ahmad of Wimbledon, met with Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri in New York on the sidelines of the 77th UN General Assembly. During the meeting, Lord Ahmad said the UK will be providing urgent food and farming support worth €3 million to Sri Lankans by taking the country's ongoing economic crisis into account. The funding, which will be delivered through Red Cross and UN partners, will provide access to food, seeds and tools to help grow crops as well as mental health care, including survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. The UK minister also said that they are providing the €3 million of life-saving support to the most vulnerable and added they will continue to work with international partners to help Sri Lanka. The new funding is part of the UK's ongoing support to Sri Lanka, since the UK is already providing support through the UN Central Emergency Response Fund, the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. Now, a Chinese donation of 650 million rupees worth of medical aid arrived in Colombo this evening. The donation was made under China's 500 million yuan emergency humanitarian assistance through China International Development Cooperation Agency. The consignment consists of 800,000 PF syringes of recombinant human erythropoietin alpha injection, 270,000 doses of rabies vaccine, 4,500 bottles of fat emulsion injection, 2,400 vials of 100 milligrams perimexid diazepam for injection, and 1,520 vials of 500 milligram PD4 injection. The Chinese embassy in Colombo said more medications and medical supplies worth 5 billion rupees will be handed over and delivered to hospitals and patients across the island in the coming months. The embassy added that China will continue working closely with Sri Lanka to provide more assistance to the people in current difficulties. Now, Russia's national carrier Aeroflot has decided to resume flights from Moscow to Sri Lanka from October. Aeroflot flights that will resume its operation to Colombo on the 9th of October will be Airbus A330 and will initially operate twice a week. The Russian airline said the sale of tickets for flights to Colombo and Bangkok is open and up to date. Scheduled to available is Aeroflot's own website. In June this year, Aeroflot suspended commercial flights to Colombo after a leased aircraft operated by the airplane was grounded in Colombo on a court order sought by the owner of the aircraft. The airline said it was suspending flights to Colombo due to the unreliability of the situation in terms of ensuring unhinged flights to the airline's aircraft to Sri Lanka. And we'll be back with more news after this short break.
අයිනෝ රයිනෝ පුතා හැබැයි යා ගෙදර නිදියන්නෙම අමූතු තැනක.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Big 3.
Uber Eats මගින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ආදරයෙන් අවශ්‍යතා ඇතියට අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩ පරිත්‍යාග කිරීමට වේදිකාවක්.
Welcome back. Now, the police arrested at least 84 individuals following the protest organized by the Socialist Youth Union this evening. The national organizer of the union, Eranga Gunasekara, was also arrested.
The Socialist Youth Union organized a protest today to express their opposition towards government inaction in the ongoing economic crisis. The protest, which was also joined by members of several civil organizations, began this afternoon from the Lipton Circus. The protesters then attempted to march towards Maradana via the Ministry of Health. However, police fired water cannons at the protesters near the Health Ministry. To bring the situation under control, the police also fired tear gas at the demonstrators. According to police, at least 84 individuals, including 2 Buddhist monks, were taken into custody. 7 protesters have been admitted to the National Hospital in Colombo for treatment. However, police say they are not in critical condition.
The Sri Lankan authorities informed bilateral creditors yesterday that they expect to have the executive board of the International Monetary Fund to grant approval for the $2.9 billion bailout package to be finalized by the end of the year. In order to ensure the country is able to secure the IMF deal, Sri Lankan authorities are calling for the formation of a unique ad hoc coordination platform for all bilateral creditors to enable bilateral creditors to give their financing assurances to the IMF collectively and after having debated among themselves.
Sri Lankan authorities carried out a virtual presentation with its creditors yesterday, presenting their plan regarding restructuring the island's debt. The virtual presentation was carried out by the Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe and Secretary to the Treasury and Ministry of Finance K. Mahinda Sirivardana as part of the country's efforts to restructure debt with bilateral creditors, a prerequisite to move forward with the $2.9 billion bailout package provided by the International Monetary Fund through its extended fund facility. According to the presentation made to the creditors yesterday, authorities expect the IMF board to approve a $2.9 billion loan by year-end. Sri Lanka reached a staff level agreement with the IMF. On the 1st of September for a $2.9 billion bailout as a part of a series of meetings carried out with Sri Lankan authorities to help recover from the economic crisis. According to the presentation made by the central bank yesterday, the total debt the country owes to members of the Paris Club by end of June 2022 amounts to $4.78 billion. Further, Sri Lanka has an outstanding debt of $9.296 billion to the non-Paris Club members. In addition, among the top 10 creditors of Sri Lanka, China, Japan and India remain as the country's largest bilateral creditors. With this being the case, to expedite the process of obtaining financial assurances from official bilateral creditors, authorities of Sri Lanka encourage the formation of a unique ad hoc coordination platform for all bilateral creditors. The CBSL believes it would allow the official bilateral creditors to give their financing assurances to the IMF collectively after having debated among themselves with the IMF and the government of Sri Lanka on the general contours of the debt treatment required to support the restoration of the island's debt sustainability. This would also provide a direct means of communication to all of Sri Lanka's bilateral creditors.
Welcome back. The chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Viraj Hidayaratne, says measures taken by the SEC as market regulator together with the CSE to create awareness and educate the public regarding market investments has shown results, stating that there has been an increase in the number of accounts opened among the youth. Speaking to Indivari Amawatha during a panel discussion on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, the SEC chairman added that they have taken long-term measures along with the Ministry of Education to include material regarding investing in the Colombo bourse when the school curriculum is revised next year. Meanwhile, Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Dilshan Veerasekara, believes that listing state-owned enterprises on the CSE would create accountability within them, while there is a need to restructure governance in order to promptly comply with the listing regulations, making such entities less of a burden to the state.
The need to revive the state-owned enterprises that have been making losses. But in terms of listing, what is the update?
The stock exchange remains ready to list SOEs, and I think we've also looked at a special framework to enable the listing of SOEs, both in terms of equity as well as debt, because I think current listing rules may not fit all or some of those SOEs that are looking at listing. We've, along with the SEC, sort of come up with a separate framework that will enable that. The exchange, like I said, remains ready, and it's more from a point of a policy decision by government whether they actually use this platform for privatization or choose another path. I think a big concern is that some of those SOEs are a burden on the government and on the nation, that they are not held accountable in terms of their profitability or any other parameter. A normal listed company would. In a listed company, you have listing rules that you have to comply. You have criteria that you need to make sure you meet, especially with regard to your shareholders, and that I think is what most of our SOEs lack. So when you list on the exchange, you will automatically have to comply to this listing. You'll be accountable to your shareholder, and I think like any private company that's currently listed on the exchange, you would be driven by your ROEs, your profitability, certain profit matrix that you would want to sort of ensure. So I feel that's the best way to achieve some of these parameters for SOEs is by listing, because then that compliance to those listing rules, to be being held accountable to your shareholders, automatically happens, and then that would in turn change those companies' governance structures and make sure that they comply with good governance practices and principles that most of the private companies adapt. There are certain perceptions that the exchange doesn't widely represent the Sri Lankan public, and I have to concede to some extent that is true, because we have only 900,000 CDS accounts currently that are open, and of which only about 60,000, 65,000 are considered as active accounts. So when you look at it, you think it's only a small segment, but that can change, and we are doing everything in our power to sort of broad base investor ownership, onboard more Sri Lankans. We were talking about how making capital markets a subject for the curriculum so that there is more financial literacy, which I think is one of the biggest causes to hold this expansion back. And if we do that, the wider public can be stakeholders of capital markets. And I think if we achieve that, probably the government also would then have more confidence to list these SOEs, because it will be a wider representation.
The overall population is not educated on investments. So what programs are you bringing in the future?
So creating awareness is a very serious issue, and we need to do a lot more in order to create that awareness. But on the other hand, there's a lot that has been done which many would not know. Due to the restrictions in movement and having mass gatherings, the CSE and the SEC could not have seminars, because the CSE and the SEC have been in the habit of going to the outstations and having seminars for would-be investors as to how the market operates and trying to give them that much needed knowledge about investing in the capital market. But as an alternative, we have reached out to social media. Let me tell you, the SEC has a Twitter account, a YouTube channel, the Facebook account. So through all of that, we've done quite a bit, although maybe many would not know. We've reached out to the Ministry of Education, and they have undertaken that with the revamping of the school curriculum in 2023, they will include capital markets as a sub, maybe not only at the ordinary level, but from a very young age. And we have promised them that we will give them the content and even train some of the teachers. So they have promised us that that will be done. And
how long will that?
At the time they will revise the school curriculum, they told us in 2023, which is not too far away. That's a long-term plan. Most of the new accounts that were opened have been those between the age of 18 and 40. So actually that can be attributed, the initiatives that both the SEC and the CSC have taken and paid off.
How much do they have this understanding of being long-term investors?
Investments in the capital market are ideally long term or medium term. Short term, yes, there are those who are day traders, that's not a bad thing. But think of the long term, be patient, understand what the capital market is all about, be aware of the dangers, the pitfalls, not be too greedy, not be avaricious. Maybe gradually improve your investment. Don't invest large sums of money in one go. Get used to the market and gradually increase your investment.
The Minister of Plantation and Industries, Dr. Ramesh Pathirana, says value-added plantation exports and crop diversification will be key for the development of the plantation sector in the country. Addressing the 168th Annual General Meeting of the Planters Association of Ceylon, the Plantation Minister said the government is committed to resolving the issues and challenges faced by the plantation sector.
The Sri Lankan plantation industry is facing many challenges. First thing is the reduction of the production and the reduction of the productivity. There's a big question mark in relation to value addition. So there are so many issues pertaining to the wage issues. There are so many factors that we need to address. So whatever the issues pertaining to the plantation sector, we as the government and we as the plantation ministry, we are fully committed to provide whatever the support that you need on futuristic basis. At the same time, we need to look at different sectors. What is the way forward? Wage structure has become a real issue. We encountered so many strikes with the laborers. So probably on a long-term basis, you might have to look at the productivity-based incentive scheme or a wage scheme. You might have to give out some more lands on outrow basis to ensure that we go ahead with new planting and replanting. Value additions. Fortunately, in some of the export agricultural areas, we've seen some great value additions. So they are earning a lot. Year-to-year growth in cinnamon and other sectors have been about 25%, which is a significant or market growth. So rubber sector also performing reasonably well, even though they import a sizable quantity from the other countries. We were trying to mitigate that because certain times the farmers were affected, but they are doing well. Coconut sector has enormous potential. Our growth had been more than 20% value-wise, volume-wise, year-to-year, all the sectors. So we have a lot of potential, but we need to protect our soil, use fertilizer efficiently, and also we go ahead and do value additions. And importantly, as the chairman mentioned, we need to look at crop diversification. So there are a lot of other things to do, as mentioned about strawberries, blueberries. Yes, you should come out with your expertise and research-based evidence to ensure and promote those cultivations also in Sri Lanka, thinking apart from tea, rubber, and cinnamon and coconut-based products.
The oil prices continue to tank, posting a fourth straight week of declines and falling to their lowest level since January amid rising fears that a looming economic downturn will hurt global demand in energy markets. The price of the US benchmark West Texas Intermediate slid roughly 5% to trade at $79 per barrel, reaching its lowest point since January amid mounting recession fears. Meanwhile, the price of international benchmark crude fell below $87 per barrel, also on track for its lowest close since January. Both WTI and Brent crude were in technically oversold territory, posting a fourth straight week of declines on Friday and marking the worst losing streak since last December. Widespread recession fears have been weighing on energy prices, but also slammed the stock market recently, with the S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average falling back into bear market territory on Friday. Both major indexes also set a new low point for the year amid the broad sell-off. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.